Welcome to Grand Arena Chat. This is Still Plays here with Glurmit, and we have a new set of topics to break down with you guys with a little bit of a Grand Arena focus. How you doing, Glurmit?
It's great to be here. I'm doing good. Just super busy, but I'm doing good. Busy is good. I mean, it's better to be busy than to be bored, you know. So there is that. All right. Is it alright if I get started? I've literally just looked at my Grand Arena history for last week, and I've got like some fun things to tell you today.
Yeah, go for it. We will begin with Grand Arena history.
Right. So I've been trialing out JML on defense with a Foresight Crun. And he held to Sith Eternal last week, which I think is a pretty big win. Sith Eternal lost to my JML, Jedi Knight Revan, Grandmaster Yoda, Hoda, Jedi Knight Luke.
How good was that Sith Eternal Emperor? What relic?
So, Relic 7.
Okay.
So maybe that's why they lost. I'm not really too sure. Other than that, didn't really have anything too notable, if I'm completely honest. Imperial Trooper was losing to my Zori. That happens a little bit too often. Treya timing out to my Zori. That's interesting. Other than that, like Fennec losing to Lord Vader, but I'm gonna be real. Fennec doesn't seem all that great at the moment against Lord Vader. Maybe when Boltcron leaves, that will change. But yeah, pretty okay. Yeah, there's not really much else to say. So how has your Grand Arena been going?
My Grand Arenas have been mixed, I'd say. Like I'm finishing every season like 5-4, which is where I want to be, but it's like a very soft 5-4 where I'm starting to get a little worried about the deficiencies in my roster and maintaining Kyber 2 regularly. Where I think what I'm finding is, as a free-to-play player, my inability to keep up with high relics is starting to have some consequences, where the softness within my roster is something that I'm feeling with different teams, because certain counters I used to rely on are no longer being as reliable because of the just constant relic churn. But we're getting through things. It's more like my defense needs to be leveled up in order to compensate, because I'm full clearing, but it's a messy full clear, and it's in those situations I'm leaving it up to my opponent to determine whether or not it's going to be a win or loss. If I get lucky with a hold, if they can't clear fleets, or if they don't really participate well. But I'm not playing a banner efficient game these days.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's fair enough. I mean, I do agree with you though. Like, there are some teams that were reliable in the past that just aren't so much at the moment. One thing I do want to quickly jump on and say though is I recently Omicroned my Merrin.
Yes.
Man, I before I did it, I was thinking it's not the best. Like, I knew it was a good Omicron, but I didn't know if it was going to be, you know, I wasn't sure if it was one of those overhyped ones or one of those ones that's really going to give that value. So far, I'm beating Dash, I'm beating Zori, I've beaten Starkiller as well. So some pretty fun teams. With Night Sisters. Sorry, I just wanted to jump in there and say that. But otherwise, I do agree with you. Like, we are at a stage where it's easier than ever to gear up, but it's also, we're getting to the point where you really need those relic levels, and they've really made it so Datacrons are just such a good thing to have, especially with the fact that now characters are level 1 with relic 1, 3, 5 requirements. It means it's so easy for people to take advantage. So if you're not relicking and trying to jump on this train, you're really going to be missing out.
Absolutely. Yeah, that Merrin Omicron is... I put it on with like the final week that my Merrin was 6 stars. So I got very limited use out of it. But even then, I was like, I should put this on immediately. It completely altered everything. It is completely usable with low stars, lower gear. It just completely alters how the team functions. It makes it all about plague, and the gear is a little bit secondary, and it's amazing the things that they can counter at those levels. I wish I had more footage of it. Is my one regret. Is just wow, what a low gear version can do.
Well, my Merin on my main is only 6-star. I still have 30 shards to go. So, hey, 6-star, gear 11. I think I've lost one battle, and it's against Azori, and they decided to just target down Daka twice, and I couldn't revive anyone. Other than that, it's been pretty good. Like, I've really enjoyed it. And I think, with the mention of Datacrons, are there any in this current set, the upcoming one, that have kind of picked your eye here, that you've seen and you're thinking, oh, this one might be quite good for us?
There's always a few that I want. Some are out of reach that I think are going to be good. Like the Ewok ones are not going to be an option for me because there's no way I'm going to relic those characters in time. But there's some interesting ones there. But for me, Malicos, that one I'm probably going to grab. But I kind of like the Fulcrum one too. That one's going to work really well with that squad. Almost a level where I'm going to grab both and just test them both out because they both look like they're going to be very strong on the squad. And then I really like the look of the Visas Mar one, where it's just a nice extra one to throw on the squad. And Visas usually goes down in a fight with mine, so that just gives me an extra little turn, a little bit more functionality. And then Captain Drogon, I think I'm leaning towards him over the Leia Organa one. I think that Captain Drogon one, starting the entire match out with Keen Stratagem, is just completely jumpstarts everything that you want to do. And then there's a couple others, like the Scout Trooper one looks very nice, but that's another one where do I have enough relics to really want to take advantage of it?
So, for me, Visas is the one that sticks out first. It's not so much Grand Arena, but in Territory War, you can use Phasma to beat Starkillers. And I think the Visas Cron will basically kill that off. Because normally it's very difficult to get around Juhani. You have to remove Mara or Palp first to shut down Turn Meter. But the thing is, Visas will take a bonus turn, cooldowns reset. Now, the thing is, because it's a bonus turn, as far as I'm aware, Hux is going to be preventing that, right? Because there's no turn meter, it's bonus turn, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think so as well. So that's a really good one that I like. I think Wedge has some viability in threes. If you're someone who runs maybe Wedge, Hunt, Chewie or something like that, whenever another ally uses an ability on their turn, Wedge assists. So you're going to be getting 2 extra assists because Chewie's going to assist, Wedge will assist as well. So that could be quite an interesting high damage team. Drogon, I think he's the one to have. I also think Akbar, for those people who have Akbar's Omicron, is going to be just god tier. I unfortunately don't have it. I don't plan on doing it. Yeah. But I think there's a lot of potential there. And do you know who else I think has a really good one? Oh, sorry, go on.
No. I'll add it after.
I was just going to say Princess Nisa, I think has like such an amazing one. 10% offense stacking for each buff. You normally have like 7 to 8 buffs, that's 80%. And then on top of that, 2% crit damage stacking whenever she attacks out of turn. In TW and GC, she's attacking out of turn 6 times every turn. So very quickly you're going to 100% off crit damage. And then you revive as well, so there's no need for Elder, which is amazing.
Absolutely, yeah. The Ewok team has a lot of... I know we're going to touch on that a little later, but it looks very interesting once you have the right level of investment on it. But it's nowhere near where I need to be. But one of the things you said about Wedge brings up a larger idea about Datacrons I wanted to touch on, where some of these Datacrons, especially now that Datacrons are so much easier to develop than they used to be, it is just worth getting them and grabbing them and utilizing them, because you can get some cheap holds with a lot of these squads. Like I grabbed the Darth Maul Datacron, threw it on defense. It's not super strong, but maybe once a week I was getting hold with it, just because players weren't really prepared, maybe wanted to try something a little cheaper or weaker, and that we already had the investment on the characters from going after the Leviathan. So I grabbed it, set it down, and that's a good way for a relatively cheap investment to Get a hold.
So, covering level 9s, I would like to talk a little bit about the level 6s. So there's a couple from each of the sets, like Troopers, Online Force Users, all of those guys, that I would pick out as good ones. The first for Troopers, I think the one you're going to want is the, whenever you inflict a debuff, you gain crit damage stacking. That could be really, really nice on Iden. For Unaligned Force Users, the obvious pick is the first or second one, which is the, whenever you gain a buff or debuff, you gain defense. And the second one, whenever you grant a buff to another ally, that ally gains turn meter. Now, here's the thing. I think the one to go for is actually going to be the Repost, the last one. Whenever an unaligned force user uses a special ability on their turn, they gain Repost. And if you guys don't know what that does, it allows you to ignore protection on attacks out of turn. So, you could use it with Reaver, because 7th Sister would ignore protection. And maybe it causes some, like... I don't know how that would really work against Trey. I don't know if it would be enough. But when everyone's death marked, it makes me wonder, would 7th Sister just kill people? Because the death mark would apply, you're ignoring the protection. So maybe it throws that off. But I think it's homes for Malakos. Because Malakos is going to go... Like, I mean, I don't know if you faced him yet. I've played him twice. I won once with Malgus, and I won once with Young Han. But he was low gear when I beat him with Young Han, so there is that. But he's been really, really tough. Like... He hits so hard, and imagine if he's ignoring protection. Yeah. Just think Ben Solo sort of damage.
100%. Yeah, it was something that you brought my attention to, and as soon as you mentioned it, I was like, oh yeah, Malakos synergy there is going to be strong. I kind of glanced over it, but you're absolutely right. I think that could have a lot of potential strength and synergy. The only question is, does it outperform what that first one is going to do on the squad?
Yeah.
Which is going to be... What's nice about the top one with the defense stacking is it counteracts some of what's going on with the Edge of Madness mechanics, which might open up some opportunities. Like, what is really... what makes it easier to counter Malakos right now is just nullifying his protection up mechanic. So like Shock is really effective at doing it, and Dispels can be very effective up against it. So if you're able to offset the loss in defense that he has with that Datacron, that might make it to the point where these squad itself is much more difficult to take out than it is right now, because the Achilles heel of the squad is kind of shut down with that Datacron.
So there's one other one from Alliance Force users. If you're a Ray user, you're going to want the... whenever an Alliance Force user targets another ally, you gain 5% defense, max health, max protection, and offense stacking. I used this one in the past when Zori's Cron was here, and Ray with Zori, Ray will go, she'll give Lifeblood, that's 5% increase, and then she takes another turn because of Zori's unique, and then she applies Lifeblood again. So you gain 10% offense and get Whirlwind off. It's just a nice little trick, the one that I'll be using. But honestly, I think Rebels and Ewoks are the level 6s to look out for. So Ewoks, there's one and only one that I'm really picking up on, and that is whenever an Ewok ally attacks that turn, they gain 2% offense stacking until the end of the battle. Now, Nisa, on her unique, is making it so whenever an Ewok attacks out turn, they deal true damage. You then have Nisa's Datacron boosting your offense a lot, and then you have the crit damage increase. And then you have this offense increase as well. You're going to see Ewoks beat some crazy things. And the other one that I really like is Rebels on the Dispel debuffs on themselves when they attack out of turn. And it goes back to that Wedge one. I think you could beat some really, really fun teams. I think Wedge, Han, Chewie would beat Starkiller in Freeze. I think Wedge, Han, Chewie... I don't know if they'd have the offense, but it makes me wonder if there's any possibility they could do something against like Lord Vader or bad Lord Vader lineups. Because you're going to have the constant Dispels. It would be interesting. I don't know if you're going to have the offense, but I really like the idea of doing something like that. I don't know what you think.
It's interesting. I don't know preemptively. It's something where like a shock would shock or daze, not shock, stun or daze would still stop it. And it depends on which teams that we'd want to use, but potentially it could be it's definitely the best of them. A lot of the Rebel ones, I think, are kind of whatever. That's definitely the best of them.
There you go. Guard can't be critically hit, immune to daze and stun. So in freeze, that you're immune to daze, you're immune to stun, and then you just cleanse yourself. I really think it's going to be an insane team to deal with.
Yeah, then definitely on the CLS squad. I can see that.
Yeah. So yeah, those are the ones I'm picking up on, and then there's one more, which is the combination of level 6 and level 3. So there's a level 6, I think it's for rebels. Whenever a rebel ally damages an enemy with an ability, they grant tenacity up for 2 turns to all allies. And if you have the level 3, it's going to give you protection up stacking for whenever you gain tenacity up. Which is a pretty cool interaction. Because if you think all the assists, you're just going to gain so much protection up. That's also going to stack with Seer teams. A lot of tenacity up in that team. Zori teams are going to benefit from that. But honestly, I think the power's in the level 6s in this one. I don't think the level 3s are that crazy. But the level 6s are looking really, really hot this time around.
I completely agree. Yeah. Don't even have too much to add to it.
Man, this Datacron set is exciting me. I just don't like Leia being included. I was a real fan of the lack of GLs lately. So...
what I'm always looking out for is what's the Datacron that is going to take a non-GL squad to a GL or near GL level. And the Malicos opportunities are a little bit there where that's fairly interesting to me. I still got a lot of relics to do in order for me to utilize that, but it's a squad that is completely deserving of that kind of attention.
Do you know what? I was just thinking, is there the potential to move Visas to the Malicos team? Because I was just thinking just now, you was talking earlier about the Visas Omicron, Datacron even, in a Starkiller team, and the fact that you have to target her. If she's in the Malicos team, Malicos has the savior anyway, so Visas won't die. And you're still forced to go for Visas before you go for Malicos, which allows them to ramp. Because if you go for anyone else...
No,
she's gonna
because
revive.
the Ami on Malicos is going to shut down Visas' revive.
Does it do it for everyone?
It's for everyone.
I don't have the Omni.
Yeah,
okay. But then maybe if you don't have the Omni, there's potential to run it together.
That's true.
Okay,
I don't know how many... No, there's definitely going to be some people where that applies to. Because the second unique I would probably do before the first unique.
Oh no, wait, hold on. Does it go for everyone? No, the text reads, enemies defeated by allies can't be revived.
Okay.
It doesn't say... Yeah? I don't know, sorry, I was just thinking about that because that would actually be pretty crazy. Like, could you imagine, like, you basically, Malicos would just ramp non-stop. Anyway.
That could be interesting.
I'm definitely gonna try that out when I get Malicos next conquest. I'll get very busy IRL. I'm like 20 shards away. So I get Malicos next conquest. I think I'm gonna try that out and put Visas in there because whenever I've gone against him, you have to take Malicos out first. But if you have Visas in there with the revives, man, that can be really, really frustrating.
Yeah, the only question is what you take out then, because you'd probably take out Ahsoka, because you want a tank in there as well.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you'd have to rely on... I mean, it makes me wonder if the Ahsoka Cron would allow her to solo more effectively at relics, because she can ignore taunt, she can prevent revive, so I wonder if you could use her to solo, like you can in Territory War, and then you move Visas into the Seer team. I feel like it's something worth trying. I'm going to try it anyway.
Yeah,
right?
It's definitely worth trying.
So the next topic we had for today was actually Cal requirements. Cal requirements have been out now for quite a while. We've both done some extensive testing, and I just wanted to go over what I think they're like, and maybe you can say what you think they're like.
Absolutely.
Now, anyone who's seen my channel before, you know Wookiees are like my favorite team right now. I've done a lot of testing. In 3v3, they do pretty well against Starkiller. In 5v5, I had lost. I kind of rage mode because Tarful gains a lot of turn meter when people are debuffed, and he was just sitting there at 100%, and no one else was close, and then obviously Mara just over TMs, and then just goes anyway, staggers him, and I lost, and I got really upset. But they're pretty good. I beat an SLKR in Territory War, but that is very Omicron dependent. It's relying on the whole foresight when critted. Kylo's always critting. He only has like 2 abilities that can ignore, like foresight and all of that. That's his middle and his ult. So he just doesn't ramp, and Zalbar will just nuke everyone. I have found Merrin to be really fun. I think she's a great character. I think she's the low gear one to have. I think if you're someone who has Night Sisters up and running, I would say Relic Daka, like 3-star Merrin, apply the Omicron and Zeta, and you're gonna have fun. Really, really good. Seer and Cal, amazing duo. Even without Malako, it's just still like an S tier team. And then we have Saw, and whilst he seems the worst of the bunch, he is someone I'm excited to invest in. I think he's not as bad as he's made out to be, but I don't know what you think on that one.
Well, it's one where I have a little bit of perspective on this because my brother loves Rogue One characters, so he invested in Saw and put down that Omicron. I don't know too much about the details and particulars, but he threw it on defense and he got a bunch of holds with it. So I'm going to be interested to see the Grand Arena history next week to see what teams were brought up against it. But he has like Relic 3 Saw, Relics on Wedge and Biggs, but only Gear 12 on Cheered and Bays, and was still able to pick up some holds. The Omicron always looked like it was going to be good, and it was going to make the Saw team work as intended. The only question was, how good was it going to be? Was it going to be one of those Omicrons that fundamentally altered what you could do with them, beat good teams, stop good teams, or was it going to be more like Dash or Admiral Radis, where they're good Omicrons, but they don't really change any counters. The team is the same with or without the Omicron. So that was my question with Saw and why I've held off so far, but the team doesn't really work without it. So I think I'm going to put it on myself and just see what happens.
So the one thing I've seen with Saw is he's actually very good in threes on defense. You run him with Kyle and Baze, and it works really, really well. It's a very hard team to beat. I went up against it. I did beat it, but it was one of those ones you really have to think about. Really, really cool team. I mean, what do you think? Cal requirements?
Yeah, with all the Cal requirements, like, yes, the Merrin is the low gear one you want because of just how good they are, but Sir Junda you'll want to get to gear 11, but what's really nice about Sir Junda, Cal Kestis, Merrin is they are all low star viable. You can use them pretty much right away as long as you got the Kairos to invest in them to at least a nominal level. And like you said, they are S tier, where even at 3 stars, gear 11, they can take out a bunch of different relic squads. Very high performing. We've been talking about them for months, and we just love those characters. With Tarful, the lower gear, like gear 12 viability is like almost there, like they're usable, but they don't punch up that much at that level. But I throw them on defense. Sometimes they surprise me. Sometimes I'll use them on offense, and they're fairly effective against weaker teams. But I see all the potential there, and they're a squad I'm looking forward to one day in the future being able to invest in.
I do think Tarful's team is one character away from being very, very strong. Yeah. Also, I get a lot of good wins with mine, but I do think that is just because I have such high relics.
Yeah.
In Tarful's relic 7, Zalbar and Vetcheria relic 8, and Clone Wars Tree's relic 6. So I think that's really what it comes down to. I think they're the relic intensive team, but I do think it's a good team, maybe for those of you who are more inclined to spend or do
How
that sort of stuff. Maybe
how
avoid it as
does
free to play.
how does yours do in the territory battle? Can it beat that?
Oh, it's just an auto.
Oh,
You just press auto, you win. Yeah, it's because in territory battles, the enemy team will basically kill itself off. It's a great TB team. But in TB, I also normally just throw Chewie or 3PO and Chewie in there as well, because I'm not using them as CLS. Which makes it even better. So the last topic for today's video is going to be reworks. We've had 2 come in, Imperial Super Commando and Lobot. And I just want to go out there and say, whilst Lobot's the one who gets overshadowed by Super Commando, I think Lobot's rework's very strong. The only thing I want to say about Super Commando, obviously we don't know what's going to get changed, but I'm a little bit disappointed. And a lot of you are probably saying, why? My issue with Super Commando is this confirmation that CG sees Maul as his own team. Whether you like it or not, the unique is literally just made for Maul. And I don't understand why Maul is being forced away from Lord Vader. Because even with the change, I don't think it's worth running Maul with Lord Vader if you have a decent relic Super Commando and Gar Saxon. I think it's worth running Maul as a separate team. The only thing I can imagine is we actually get Lord Vader Lifter who explicitly states that Maul cannot be in the said team. And then Lord Vader's fixed and he does everything. Maul goes in with Super Commando. And then I think we're going to get a Mandalorian light side Marquis or GL, or possibly even like a Journey Guide character, and then Beskar, Mando, and Bow and Armor go light side. Because the other thing is, Super Commando is very about having dark side. It's almost like Lobot's very light side for droids. Imperial Super Commando requires those dark side Mandalorians, which Beskar Gideon is going to be the 5th in that team.
yeah.
That's my only issue, and I will be taking Super Commando and Gar Saxon to Relic. I may even do it on my stream today. Which, if you're watching this in the future, I either did it or I didn't do it. But no, that's my only issue of Imperial Super Commando. It's a great rework, but I just don't like the position it's putting Lord Vader in, because I think it's basically to me it's confirmation that Lord Vader is not made for Maul anymore.
Yeah, it's a rework where I wonder if it's going to be a defensive only, just because with that functionality. And also with DTMG, there's a lot of defense, a lot of recovery, and not a lot of offense, because when you lose some of the characters that are on an existing Maul squad, like Jango going over to Trench potentially, the damage output is a little softer, so the recovery potential to me is just saying defensive squad.
Yeah.
And I do agree with one of the things that we miss most about the early days of the game was how it was really just throw some characters together and see what happens. And we've, for several years now, have been towards this situation where squads are very explicitly designed to function in a very specific way, which limits some of the fun opportunities of just stumbling upon something.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm interested to see how it goes.
Yeah, I think it should be fine. Like, for me, I just really didn't like Mando Season 3 or Dark Trooper Moff Gideon, so I was kind of hoping to give him the Silent Django treatment of basically just ignoring the character, and I like Maul too much to ignore him, so I gotta put relics on now. But one thing I do want to say about Lobot and that rework, it's more of a comment on Sortie in general, where that squad is just not low gear viable because of how spare parts works. The team is way more effective, way stronger with spare parts before the revive has been triggered, and they very quickly become worse once you get that free revive. And with lower gear characters on a sortie squad, it's very easy to trigger the spare parts and nerf the squad. So I've tried some Lobot testing, and that's kind of where I feel and where I've fallen with it. Is the promise is there. I'm looking forward to having relics on those squads to really see what I can do with it, but not able to punch up with it.
I think that's a fair assessment. I do absolutely agree. Shorty is as far away as you can get from low star viable, which I hate to say because Shorty's like probably top 3 or 4 favorite characters to me in this game. I also think the problem is you need a tank. Again, if there's no tank, it's quite easy to get rid of spare parts.
Yes.
Once spare parts is gone, the team kind of falls apart. So I'm thinking the best team for Lobot is going to be Shorty, L3, Lobot, T3, and I think the last droid needs to be who is it? I remember, but BB-8. There we go.
Yeah.
And I think that is the team you're going to run.
At least for now.
I think you need L3. Yeah.
It's a team screaming. One new character is going to elevate it.
Yep. I also think it'll be interesting to see what it does with T3's Omicron as well. That would really interest me to see what the team can do. But yeah, that's kind of the reworks. I think they're decent. I like them. It's just like I said, my main critique is just we have to get something for Lord Vader at this point, because clearly, especially when we talk about Gideon in the next episode, you guys are going to see that clearly Maul is now his own team. There is no more question about it. It's not even up for debate, guys. Maul, Territory War, yeah, sure, keep him with Lord Vader. GAC, everywhere else, you're not going to use him with Lord Vader anymore. It's going to be with Mandalorians. And that's the only thing that annoys me. It's not the fact they're taking Maul away. It's the fact that I think they just messed up. I've been saying it for months. I think the fact they gave Maul a lead and made it good. Imagine if they had done the same for Cat. But because they did it for Maul, that's why we've always had this issue. So I think Lord Vader needs someone to come in and exclude Maul from working in the team. Unless they plan to have Lord Vader be an Inquisitor lift, I don't know.
Thank you, everyone. This has been the Grand Arena Chat. Get down in the comments. You have questions. We'll put it into a next video. For Glurmit, this is Still Plays. Be excellent to each other, everybody.
See you later, guys.